Of course, we had the NFL trade deadline around Halloween night. I want to get a further update and detail what happened around October 31st. And under that month, we of course had James Harden traded from the Philadelphia 76ers to the Los Angeles Clippers for three selective players. So PJ Tucker out of his $11 million contract over Philip Postov for 1.1 million. For Kenyon Martin Jr., that was a rotation. Marcus Morris, a veteran anchor. Nicholas Batum, the older and more inconsistent Nicholas Batum. It's just Tobias Harris if he was French. And Robert Covington, the only exceptional rotation person. And now you have Tyrese Maxey. The only consolation prize, the 76ers got 3 first-round picks from 2026 to 2029 that are favorable, not even accepting the bid that they're probably going to max over their contract. That was expiring, by the way, after paying over, I think still remaining over his Houston deal in what he got when he was over in Brooklyn. This was a three-way. So Oklahoma City Thunder literally leech on the remains like the collector and pick up the valuables that nobody else is looking for, like a 2027 first-round pick. That's not even that far away. That's insane. The 76ers finally get a cancer out that's been reputably negatively infecting over the locker room and the front office after not even showing up over in practice or media day after already vocally expressing that he doesn't want to deal with Daryl Morey or even play for any team that Daryl Morey is a part of involving the 76ers. And he even showed up over in the Orlando Magic LA Clippers game, showing up over in the locker room beforehand. So you know damn well he wasn't even going to pull up to practice then, after reported from Elton Brand. So at least they got exceptional non-vocal pieces that are going to be playing. So the benefit, another choke hazard over in the choke hazard of the Clippers with a inconsistent spot-up jumper that has higher efficiency over his shoe collection than he ever has with spot-up shooting over in the corner in his life, and a guy that's barely going to get as many minutes as Mason Plumlee. I just don't get it. While you got serviceable rotation players that can take up a first option or second option around the bench, and we all know the 76ers have gotten an issue with trying to deal with depth in, let's say, their front court. Other than Joel Embiid, guys that can hustle around the floor and spot up and shoot. There's games where the Sixers always get a struggle to even shoot or play catch up with certain teams like the Boston Celtics or the Golden State Warriors, Milwaukee Bucks as well. The Phoenix Suns is going to be very difficult to compensate. So now they have more rotational depth pieces and a lot more experience over on their bench. And I feel like that's at least a benefactor for the Sixers going forward. And if we look at Philadelphia, on paper, it's technically still the Joel Embiid show because Tyrese Maxey hasn't been a reputable all-star yet. We know he can score. He's a good playmaking shot creator. He dropped over 31 not that long ago, and he's shown he can really create his own shot and finish around the rim. I feel like he's a better Emmanuel Quickly. And that is to say that he can actually start. But Maxey's going to be a star. But I don't know if he will have the game experience to really push over any heights, like how Jamal Murray hasn't been a reputable guard that can play in an all-star setting, but that doesn't mean that you're still an impactful player. Obviously, when the Nuggets missed Jamal Murray, they weren't a complete team. While, without that second option of scoring, if Maxey gets inconsistent games, especially when he plays off against more top teams, like if he plays Milwaukee, if he plays New York, if he plays LA, if he plays Golden State, Denver, Oh, it'll be really questionable how Philadelphia is going to really prepare for those games, even with the depth they got, because they're playing. They're playing now with Kelly Oubre that they got off waivers. Nicholas Batum's probably going to switch over to that wing position, so I feel like they're going to stagger around the minutes. Mohamed Bamba's now on the Sixers. Daniel House is going to... And there's a lot of, like, veteranship now, because Covington's 32. Batum's 34. Beverly's 35. And B's reaching around the 30 range. And the only youngsters that they have that they can build over... Oh, yeah, Tobias Harris is 31. Don't forget Marcus Morris is edging at 35. Is Tyrese Maxey and Kenyon Martin Jr. and DeAnthony Milton that's 25 years old. And Paul Reed. And those are the only guys that have some serviceable minutes played over on the starting level on the Sixers before this trade happened. We gotta count Kelly Oubre as a veteran. He's 27. Especially that he's not been a perennial all-star any of his time. I think anybody that had any high production rate that Kelly Oubre had, it hasn't been that way since he was on the Suns. Or when he was in Washington. We can reach that in there when he was at least a decent starting wing. And right now he's just been a rotation option. The winners of the trade is obviously going to be Philadelphia. I feel like they'll just have a better cruise around the regular season, even with the lack of a load management. Because how else are you going to win? Especially over the injury riddlement of Harden, Westbrook, and the load management over a consistent 82 season. Don't get me wrong, they played well, but it was against an Orlando Magic team that staggered a bit around the first half with the lead until they garnered momentum. But yikes. Just yikes, guys. So around Halloween night, around the trade deadline, Joshua Dobbs, that actually was pretty serviceable, but was showing some game-breaking mistakes. Traded now as now the official starting quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings after Kirk Cousins was out over an injury in his game against the Green Bay Packers, as well acquiring a 6th-round pick after Ariza Cleveland got traded off tackle for the Jacksonville Jaguars now. Also, 3rd-round pick for Chase Young to the San Francisco 49ers. I understand. Shout outs to John Jay. He brought this up over his channel. And he went over it in further detail. I understand certain people would right now over a 3-game losing streak after opening over a 15-game winning streak, closing off their winning streak over a loss against the Cleveland Browns, losing to the Minnesota Vikings, and then recently losing to the Cincinnati Bengals. Obviously, people would acquire over their quarterback system, probably reaching over for more offensive options, and even though we are noticeable for our front five, and we probably have the best defensive unit in the NFL, more people are more iffy that we don't have a more experienced and more consistent, serviceable quarterback. If the system itself doesn't work on him and he can't create his own throws, so instead of working on 2 piles of shit, we have somebody to just cancel us out. So we're practically the NFC West Pittsburgh Steelers. I don't want to say that. I really don't want to say that, guys. I don't want to say that. Donovan Peoples-Jones, a decent 3rd-option receiver to the Detroit Lions that are opening in hot after their shutout against Baltimore. They came up over a great defensive display against the Las Vegas Raiders on primetime on Monday Night Football the few nights ago. Now picking up a proper receiving option. And Rasul Douglas, cornerback from the Green Bay Packers, heads over to the Buffalo Bills, including a 5th-round pick from 2024 for a 3rd-round pick for the Green Bay Packers. So I would say it's exceptional options. I wouldn't say that there was not many losses. Even though I feel like the Niners really didn't need to do much over on the defensive side of the ball, knowing our injury history, because the only guys that are out is Dre Greenlaw. So I think that was why they went edge over that spot so they can get more serviceable defensive options. Even though Greenlaw hasn't been, sometimes didn't come over as a factor. You mainly had that off sometimes Oren Burks, obviously Fred Warner, Travarius Ward, Talu Hufunga, Diamador Lenore. In our offensive line issue is a bit dire, knowing that Trent Williams is questionable coming out of injury. Of course, Deebo Samuels is out. So we really thought we'd get more versatile options over on the offensive side of the ball, and we don't know whether to trust Brock Purdy or not, but I feel like there's still patience with Purdy, knowing our rap sheet, and still we've gotten high-scoring offensive games with Brock Purdy. And losing a player like Deebo is more detrimental, so I thought more over the receiving option would be a lot more impactful than just getting another edge. Because we already got guys that can punch offenses in the mouth. But how we blow away games come over offensive mistakes. So I'm just questioning the front office decisions over that. So hopefully the Niners can make some fixes over that. Also, the Washington Commanders did receive a second-round pick for getting rid of Montez Sweat. A serviceable defensive end, but he hasn't been that highly productive. So hopefully he can actually pick it up. He's still over 4 years of experience in the NFL. He's 27, so he's still over his prime years where he can still produce. And coming out of the season, he's still started a majority of his games, over 377 snaps. And he's reaching near his career high tally already. He's a consistent tackler around the edge. He's not that big over tackles for losses, but he will force over the ball. So I guess that's to compensate for Chase Young's production, knowing he got an injury history. But that's practically what the Bears wanted to do. And practically they are hefty over the reliance on rebuilding for this season. So that's all I'm going to say involving that, because we know the Chicago Bears are obviously struggling this season. And that's practically most of what I got for today. Because I know the deadline was around Halloween, but I was busy. Obviously, I did distribute candy. And, I was watching a couple games. But for further news, we'll probably talk about this later. Hopefully you guys enjoyed your Halloween and get ready for Christmas. I'm sorry, that's business logic talking. Thanksgiving, and we'll get further content on the way later involving other topics here on the DC Show. Like, comment, subscribe for more. We'll be back for further. Also, for a side note to close out, we also have, of course, former head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders after that loss against the Detroit Lions and looking absolutely inept. McDaniels got, no pun intended, sacked or fired as head coach of the Las Vegas Raiders, even after getting shut out. Davante Adams still being stuck over on the team, knowing that they're with a worser and less productive quarterback than Derek Carr, falling now only second best over the division because they're only a game a game less over the two teams that would be 3-5, and they would fall over third. But now they're second. Now they're only third worst over the Chargers that are still a game below 500. But actually, a good decision finally made in the front office for the Raiders. Adios.